Talk with Bobby Karalla, Mavs.com here with you, though, as the Mavs coming off last night's loss to the Warriors. Bobby, good evening, and thanks for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing well, gentlemen. How are you?
We're doing outstanding. Was there anything that concerned you for any reason about last night's contest?
I mean, I wouldn't say anything concerned me. I guess kind of the underlying, concern that is something that is very real and could be a big issue, or a bit of an issue at least, is with Dereck Lively not playing, it really means that the Mavs are essentially not only down their backup big man in Lively, but also if they play Maxi Kleber at the 5, then they're also kind of down their backup power forward. And with Josh Green already out, that means that whenever the Mavs decided against playing Dwight Powell in the second half, they were just so small. And this team's identity was really revamped midseason to become bigger, longer, taller, more athletic, stronger than the other guys. But last night in the second half, I mean, they were rolling out a lineup of like Kyrie Irving, Jaden Hardy, Tim Hardaway, Maxey at the 5. There just wasn't a lot of size. And so that kind of goes against their established team identity. And so it's going to be a really interesting thing to see, you know, depending on how long Lively's out. Hopefully it's not very long, but Jason Kidd said it could be a couple weeks. So, we'll see. But that, I guess, was the concern. But as for what happened on the floor during the game, in that one isolated game, I wasn't too concerned. Obviously, not getting the win, kind of stinks. But, hey, the Warriors are good too.
Bobby, is the Mavs playoff run kind of tied to Lively, though? Is it? I mean, you painted the picture exactly for us, you know, the situation of all the moving parts. But if he's not healthy for the playoffs, it's Dwight Powell having to play. And nothing against Dwight Powell, but they're a different team with him in the lineup, right?
Yeah, they're much different. I mean, Lively is taller than Powell, longer than him. At this stage in Dwight's career, Lively's got more foot speed, more agility. He's got a bigger vertical leap, so a bigger target for Luka going to the rim. And then at the other end of the floor, that translates over to rim protection, shot blocking, rebounding, deterrence, things like that. As far as, how that spins forward to the playoffs, again, hopefully this is a nothing burger and he'll be back. Mavs play tomorrow night, so who knows? But, it depends on their matchup in the first round, because the Mavs have been so good over the last month and a half, 2 months, playing big bully ball.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't surprise me that if they do get into the playoffs, obviously they still got to earn their way in, but if they do make it to a series, it would not surprise me if the opponent, whoever that is, tries to spread them out and force them to go small anyway, because the Mavs are so good playing this big, super big ultra ball. But we'll see. I mean, it depends on who they go up against. Obviously, if you face a team like Denver, Denver's not going small. Jokic is going to be out there for 40 minutes a night. But if you go up against a team like the Clippers, or if you go up against a team, even like the Thunder, they're going to spread you out. They're going to play smaller, and they're going to make you match their speed. And so in that case, it might not affect them as much. I mean, it's really so matchup dependent. But obviously, it doesn't matter how many or how few minutes you're going to play in a series. You want to be totally healthy going into the playoffs. And ultimately, I mean, that is the main objective down the stretch.
Aren't the third best scorers on this team the centers for the Mavs?
It's certainly been that way. It's been that way. Now, some of that is a byproduct of the way that teams are defending Dallas, too. Last night, the Warriors didn't really start doubling Luka super aggressively until the fourth quarter. And whenever they were running pick and roll, the Warriors were just switching a lot. They were really coming up, playing at the level of the screen, and then the big man was retreating back. So there really wasn't much of a pick and roll lob game last night, even with Daniel Gafford on the floor. But other teams are going to be a little more aggressive defending Luka. Maybe they're going to pull their big way out, step out, try and double team him, hedge him, push him back toward midcourt or the sideline or whatever. And that is what leaves all this space underneath for Gafford or Lively, or the other bigs to score. So, that kind of depends on the matchup too. But I mean, again, Lively is he's shooting 75% or something from the floor this season. He's unbelievable. So, I mean, you definitely want him out there.
You mentioned defense. It seems like that's really been the emphasis for the Mavs, certainly since the All-Star break, but what was a catalyst in their success during the winning streak, having won, 12 out of the last 14, whatever it might be. What have you noticed on the defensive side of the floor? Is it as simple as the effort from everybody that's out there?
Yeah, I mean, having more size definitely helps. Having P.J. Washington is just big and strong. To defend big, strong wings helps. Gafford obviously has been really, really good. And collectively, they're a much better rebounding team. But, yeah, I mean, to your point, a lot of it is effort. The Mavs, especially over the last, let's say, like 9 or 10 games, they haven't really given up a lot in transition. They have not Luka and Kyrie haven't been missing rotations. They haven't been caught out of position too many times. I mean, everybody is pulling their weight. They really are playing, 5 guys on a string. There are some possessions from that little mini series in Sacramento that stand out where Luka would get switched on to Domantas Sabonis and he held his own, or maybe Kyrie gets switched on to De'Aaron Fox and he's able to stay in front of him. And, they even made things tough on Steph last night, but it was just the Warriors role players that beat them. So, everybody is doing their job, but I mean, hey, it definitely helps. I like to think about it this way. Going back to the Dirk era, whenever the Mavs didn't have a top half defense, everybody was worried about, how Dirk might not be a really good defender. Well, then you surround him on one side with Sean Marion and on the other side with Tyson Chandler, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, Dirk is a great team defender, guys. This is awesome, So the talent around Luke is better, but also Luka and Kyrie and those guys are dialing it in a whole lot more for sure.
Bobby Karalla, Mavs.com with us here in the nation. I'm glad you mentioned those guys. We were goofing around the other day. If you could take one former Mav, non-Dirk former Mav, and put them on this current iteration of the Mavericks, who would that player be for you?
Oh, man, that is super tough. I've always been really interested to see what kind of player Michael Finley would be in this era. He was such a good shooter, such a good three-point shooter, but the league just wasn't to the point where he could take like 8 or 9 of those per night. And he was a high 30s, low 40s shooter for his entire career from 3. Like, there's no reason to believe Michael Finley couldn't have been one of these super high volume, Buddy Hield, Klay Thompson types. They could just get you 25 on like 9 shots if he's really hot. So, non-Dirk, I might have to go Michael Finley, but man, there's so many good choices there. But I think Finn is my guy.
A lot of Tolos liked Sean Marion in this situation. I ultimately decided to go with Jason Kidd for the full skill set, great defense. Even though we got 3-point guards, I think we can make it work.
Oh yeah, I mean J Kidd could play for sure with Kyrie and Luka. He'd be kind of like Dante Exum, although Jason Kidd's a Hall of Famer, so he would be a turbocharged version of Dante Exum, and that'd be really, really nasty too.
Now, if I'm looking at players, that could push this team over the top, man, watching Draymond, he is so, unpredictable, and there's a downside there. But when they're going well, I think they draw so much energy. It's just like the look on his face elevates them somehow. Can I get you on board with him if he becomes available for the Mavs to push us over the top?
Oh, man, I don't know. I mean, that block at the end of the game last night, oh, my God. He climbed the ladder and stuffed Gafford, and the whole crowd just went nuts. I mean, that was amazing. I think Draymond works so well in Golden State because on defense he can play center, but on offense he can kind of play point guard. You got Steph and Klay just sprinting around the perimeter, running off screens and all that stuff, and Draymond can see that happening. Obviously, I think in a situation where he doesn't have the ball in his hands as much, I'm not sure that you can use his passing as, the same kind of weapon, but man, I mean, him and Steph together is just it is a nightmare to defend. And then Draymond, even at his advanced age, he's 34, 35 now. He is still one of the best defenders in the whole NBA, possession by possession. I mean, you have to know where he is, otherwise he can single-handedly destroy your whole trip down the floor.
And it seems like he and Luka are like old friends at this point.
Yeah, Draymond, it was the first or second possession of the game, Draymond accidentally raked Luka across the face and was very apologetic. Like, the first time in Draymond's career that he's apologized for anything. That really stood out to me quite a bit.
What are you thinking right now about Luka and the MVP race?
I mean, he's been amazing. He has been amazing. He's your player of the month for February. He's your player of the month for March. Last night he had a 30-point triple-double, and, if they would have won last night, they'd only be a game back of 4th, which would be pretty spicy if they could climb up and get home court advantage. But as it is now, they're still going to have to win a lot just to clinch the top 6. But, man, I mean, he's putting up numbers that we've really never seen before or that we haven't seen in 60 or 70 years. And anytime you're doing that, it's going to raise a lot of eyebrows. I think he's got to kind of overcome some of the narrative, people that maybe don't watch the Mavs every night who think, okay, well, he's maybe not a great defender or maybe he's got some attitude issues or whatever. That really hasn't been the case for a couple months now. He's been really locked in. I don't think he's even got a technical foul since February at this point. I might be missing 1 or 2, but and he's been locked in on defense too, and they're winning a whole lot of games. Like, they now have, for roughly half the season, been a top 4 or 5 team in the NBA by win percentage. Just the first month or so of the season, a bunch of guys were out, so they were losing. So I don't think you can hold team record against him that much, and you certainly can't beat his per-game stats. So if you wanted to vote for Luka for MVP, hey, I would not argue with you for a single second.
How about an argument on Luka saying Caitlin Clark shoots it better than him?
Dude, she can sling it. Man, I don't know. What's really impressive about Caitlin Clark is her passing. Like, as a passer, she reminds me of Luka. She's always making, super cool passes. But, dude, I mean, she's, 40, 45% from three, shooting it from 35 feet. Like, she can shoot it like Steph, and she can pass like Luka. It's pretty dang impressive player.
We might have gotten carried away with the 7-game winner, Bobby, but like Zach and I are both going to, pick the Mavs to go on a big run and maybe even be in the finals. Are we? Is that realistic?
I mean, it depends. I think here's the deal, right? The Mavs have two of the greatest shot creators of all time. Half court, open court, transition does not matter. They are going to get a good shot almost every time down the floor. They can score from anywhere. They're incredible in the clutch. Kyrie is one of the best fourth quarter players in NBA history, right? And now they have defenders. They got a lot of defenders. They got versatile defenders that can defend multiple positions. They can play big. They can play small. They can play in between. They don't have too many weaknesses outside of what happens if you dare P.J. Washington and Derek Jones and Josh Green and Dante Exum to beat you with the three ball. Can those guys step up and knock down their open shots? Last night they couldn't. Against Houston they did, and the Mavs were up 30 midway through the third quarter. They can destroy teams when they make their shots. If they don't, it's going to be tough. But the single biggest development for this team this year is they have finally reached a point. It took about 60 games, but they finally reached a point where their defense gives them a chance to win every single night. And if your defense can just be good enough to keep you in the game, then you have to trust throughout a 7-game playoff series that Kyrie and Luka are going to win enough games for you down the stretch to get it done. And that does not matter whether it's against the worst team that makes the playoffs or the Nuggets or the Celtics or anybody. I mean, they will have a chance to win every single night. It just comes down to execution and also staying healthy.
Bobby, you've seen every game that Luka has played. Does it surprise you anymore when he comes up with those crazy-ass shots that he makes?
It's still surprising, man. I mean, like, how can you expect the unexpected? I guess you always try to, and then you see it, and you're like, yeah, I've never seen anybody do that in my life. And this is like the fourth time he's done that this week. Like, it is just unbelievable what he's able to imagine and come up with. And really, I mean, Kyrie too. Like, Kyrie made his game winner against Denver from basically that same exact spot, on the move with his left hand. Like, these guys are unbelievable. And, I think they bring it out of each other too. Luka sees Kyrie make his shot, and I was like, oh my God, I got to do something like that now. Let's see what I can cook up. So, I mean, it's been a whole lot of fun to watch. He is just amazing, and from the broadcast angle and from my seat at the arena, I can see the whole floor, and still 2 or 3 times a game, Luke is able to make a pass that I did not see coming. And I'm just like, I don't know how this guy does it. I really don't know how he does it, but man, I enjoy every second of it.
I mean, equally unbelievable to me is Kyrie taking it into the land of giants and not getting it swatted. He can like show the ball and then finish in a totally different spot within like an eighth of a second, it seems.
And he's so good too at like getting inside those guys, almost like a shorter, smaller boxer. Like you want to get into the longer guys.
Yes.
He's so good at using his body, and because I mean he can jump high enough to dunk, but it's not like he's jumping over a Kia or anything, right? Like he's just got a pretty good vertical leap, but he's able to quick step into guys and then jump, and then he can finish at any angle off the glass, left hand, right hand, any amount of English, any amount of spin from anywhere on the floor, like under the rim, next to the rim, reverse, does not matter. I mean, he is amazing. Now, I think what works against him is because he is so good, and because like I think even the refs are kind of slack-jawed whenever he does his stuff, he doesn't get a lot of foul calls, which is a bummer because he's such a good free throw shooter. So, it'll be really interesting to see in the playoffs now that the game is being called tighter, if he and Luka aren't getting a lot of calls, then it does mean they're going to have to finish those really tough shots, more often than not. So we'll see. But dude, I mean, he is an absolute wizard around the rim. It's unbelievable for a guy his size to be able to do what he does.
I'm sure you got to run, Bobby, like we do. But if the season restarted, defensive efficiency-wise, where would you pick the Mavs to finish a season?
I mean, if they stayed healthy enough, I think that this is at least a top half defense. This is around league average, if not, flirting with top 10 over a long enough sample size. Maybe they climb even higher than that. But I mean, they have the foundation and the opportunity to be really, really, really good on defense if they are able to lock in and begin to stay healthy. And, you're not winning a championship unless you're top 10 on defense, and they've been top 10 on defense for about 25 games now. So, I mean, again, I'm rolling the dice with these guys no matter who they're playing in the playoffs, but they just have to get there first.
Sounds great, Bobby. Enjoy the rest of the season, and we'd love to catch up with you again real soon.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you.